everybody, and welcome back to Unwise Girls, your number one source of misleading information and untruths about the Percy Jackson series at all. I am your host, Jacqueline.
And I'm Jane. Percy is canonically 30 years old in the first book.
Editor Jacqueline here to say that I am about to forget a joke that I made 5 seconds ago. Please feel free to scorn me.
Excuse me? Can you explain what you mean by this?
No.
Why? Wait, you have to tell me this. You can't just say something and then not explain it. You have to explain it to me and the listeners.
To be honest, I'm only thinking this because I recently made the mistake of dipping into the Attack on Titan fan wiki. And the amount of whack bullshit that retcons into the earlier parts of that story just made me think, what if Percy was actually being puppeted by a time-traveling version of himself from 30 years in the future, who made the Minotaur eat his mom?
Which Attack on Titan character did that?
Eren.
He was being piloted by like a 30-year-old version of himself?
I think for some of it, and for another part, he made a Titan eat his mum to maintain the integrity of the timeline. Spoilers for Attack on Titan, I guess, but it's really shit.
Who cares? Yeah. So we've got some news for you today to move away from Attack on Titan.
Please.
There's been some Percy Jackson content happening in the world.
Hey, wait a second.
Yes?
Percy Jackson is about fighting Kronos. So couldn't you technically say that it is an Attack on Titan?
Jane, every week I say I'm so excited to do a podcast with my good friend Jane. I've known her for years now. It's been so nice to know her. And every single day that we talk, I'm delighted. And then we get to do the podcast, and you just say the most horrendous shit. And I think to myself, is this the life that I've chosen? Is this what I want to be doing with my next 5 years?
If it's
doing
any consolation,
a podcast with this clown?
If it's any consolation, I'm saying equally to hurt the listeners as well as you.
Understandable. Well, if it's to hurt the listeners, then it's okay. So there's a preliminary casting call going out for the Percy Jackson TV show, specifically for the character of Percy. And there are a few, frequently asked questions in the update. What age will Percy be?
Oh yeah, because I guess they changed it in the first adaptation.
Yeah, because Percy is a character who is 12 years old in Lightning Thief, and they made him like an 18-year-old, or maybe a 17-year-old.
16, I believe. And Logan Lerman looked about 20.
Maybe. I could have sworn he was like a senior. Maybe that's the next movie. But for this TV show, they're looking for an actor who can, quote, play 12. And they basically want to have a Harry Potter thing. They want to have the Shrieking Shack. They want to have the Shrieking Shack horror show HBO multi-season thing going on, where the kid ages over the course of the series. All right, you sound like this is bad to you. I
want this. Realistically, it won't, but I want this whole project to stay as far away from the Harry Potter well as possible. I know that this is just because Disney wants their own Harry Potter, but for all the shit that we have given these books, they are not Harry Potter, and that is a great redeeming feature about them.
Very true. What's that movie? Boyhood? Every movie and TV show wants to be Boyhood now.
Yeah.
And I guess it started with Harry Potter. Harry Potter was the original Boyhood. But I don't know. It's whatever. It's fine, I guess. And it seems the next question is, and it looks like basically the information we're getting is that Percy is the first character they're looking for, and a lot of the other casting choices will be made depending on who they get for Percy.
I mean, that makes sense.
There's a specific question on the page that says, is Percy a specific ethnicity? It says that is not part of the casting call description. We're looking for the best person who can embody the character we all know and love from the books. I think it'd be cool if Percy wasn't white in the show.
Yeah, for sure.
If they do get a talented young child who is also white, then I guess that's fine. But I don't know. It seems like it would. I've heard a lot of people calling for Asian Percy. I don't know if there's a specific origin of that.
Based anecdotally on one tweet I saw yesterday, it was just Southeast Asia is a lot of islands and there's a lot of kind of ocean culture, and therefore a kid whose powers are the sea would be appropriate for that, I think.
True. That would be cool. I don't know. So many Percy Jackson characters. I don't know. It's going to be weird. I know that he's white in the books. It's going to be weird if Grover isn't black. I don't know. Like, Grover as a character is black to me now.
That might just be the fault of the movie.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. I just think that, like, it'd be cool if that was continued.
Yeah.
And they made him, like, the same character instead of, like, a bunch of stereotypes.
Please, that would be very nice. I mean, I guess related to that is the news that Riordan himself is, like, co-penning the script for the pilot, which that's pretty good, I think. I know that sometimes when people move from one medium to another, it doesn't work very well. Like, I know Stephen King has tried to dip his toe into filmmaking a few times and it hasn't gone well.
It's perfect every time.
But I also know that, like, the guys who wrote the Expanse books wrote a lot of the best episodes in season 5 of that show. So I think there's definitely potential for that to be really, like, good and make sure that things stay, like, more or less chained to the vision of the books rather than going off the rails like the first movie did.
That makes sense, yeah. Another thing that I was hearing, because I did do a cursory search of the subreddit.
Oh, Christ.
And one of the things that I kept hearing from people was, like, if they make Annabeth not blonde, or they make her, like, not a blonde white girl, that'll be a crime against the books, because part of her character is that she is, the people think she's dumb because she's blonde. And I haven't seen that yet. Maybe that's a thing later, but that
doesn't feel like a substantial loss for the character.
I would also say, like, if that is your argument for, like, the thrust of why the character should be, like, blonde white girl, then I would ask you to, like, look inside of yourself and think if there are any other, like, maybe are there any other reasons that people are ever stereotyped as being, like, dumb or looked out upon in that same way, like, that aren't being, like, a blonde white girl.
Who could possibly say?
Who could say? And I guess the next thing on the news is that, like you said, it looks like the pilot is going to be co-penned by the creator of the show Black Sails. Now, do you know anything about Black Sails?
I don't. My first exposure to it was you earlier telling me that the guy co-writing it wrote Black Sails.
Basically, Black Sails is, from what I understand, it's a few seasons of television about Captain Flint or something. If you've ever read Treasure Island, then it's like a prequel to Treasure Island, and the first season is okay, and the next seasons are apparently, like, amazing and gay, which is probably heartening.
Yeah, that's a good sign. I know, like, the books definitely get a lot more, like, queer representation in as they go. And if they maybe are just trying to go for that from the start, I wouldn't be against that.
That'd be cool to see. I think that's all we've got for news, though. Let's take on the matter of telling you about the chapters we read this week.
I feel like we didn't spread enough misinformation in our news segment. We promised that up top. Do we want to quickly throw in some malicious lies first?
Yeah, it looks like there's also some news coming in right this moment. It looks like Rick Riordan has stated that Percy is going to be they are casting for like a trans actor for Percy, so that the character can transition through the series.
Oh God. I'm also really excited about the practical centaur effects that we've been hearing about. Every scene with a centaur, they are just going to decapitate a horse and stuff a guy down the neck hole, and then the horse's spasms will have to be accounted for, but I think it'll look really good.
God, okay. We read we read 3 chapters this week. For some reason, the whole time I was reading this, I was like, it's so weird that we're only halfway through the book. But this is the second to last episode in the Sea of Monsters. In the Sea of Monsters book.
The climax has just kind of come out of nowhere, huh?
I mean, not really. It just, the pacing was so weird that it moved a lot faster than it felt like it would.
I guess, again, we're dealing with a book that's, I think, like 100 pages down on the previous one.
Yeah.
So that might just be why the pace feels a bit off.
That's true, yeah. I have some more thoughts for the chapters, but we can do that after we talk about the chapter summaries.
Oh yeah. Chapter 15. Nobody Gets the Fleece. Polyphemus catches Annabeth, dealing her a nasty blow to the head in the process. Percy and Clarice attack the Cyclops while Grover tries to carry Annabeth out of the cave. While Percy and Clarice manage a few glancing blows, they can't do anything substantial to Polyphemus, who chases all 4 of them across the rope bridge in the centre of the island, and onto the section inhabited by killer sheep. Percy and Grover's attempt to cut the bridge to keep him at bay is unsuccessful as the Cyclops manages to make it to the other side of the chasm. However, Percy experiences a sudden, mysterious burst of strength and manages to single-handedly bring the monster to his knees in a flurry of sword strokes. Before he can deal the killing blow, Polyphemus begs for mercy, and in spite of everything his friends have told him, Percy agrees to let him live in exchange for the fleece, moved to pity by the fact that Polyphemus is a son of Poseidon too. However, Polyphemus goes back on his word, almost killing Percy before being stopped by Tyson, who hurls a cannonball into Polyphemus's chest, sending him plunging into the chasm. It turns out that he survived the engine explosion, and Rainbow, the hippocampus who carried him to the Princess Andromeda, fished him out of the water. He spent the intervening time searching for Percy and Annabeth before catching the scent of sheep and heading to this island. Percy notices that the killer sheep don't seem to be interested in Tyson, possibly because they think he's Polyphemus, and asks Tyson to grab the golden fleece from the centre of the island so he can use it to heal Annabeth. Tyson does this and then lures the sheep away, promising them food. Annabeth's wounds slowly begin to heal, and the gang attempt to use Tyson's distraction as an opportunity to retreat to the Queen Anne's Revenge and wait for their friend. However, before they can swim all the way out to the ship, Tyson returns, being chased by the sheep, and Polyphemus, wielding a boulder in each hand. Chapter 16. I Go Down with the Ship. The rest of the group continues swimming to the ship, while Percy turns and helps Tyson face down Polyphemus to buy time for the others. The larger Cyclops shames Tyson for working with mortals, begging him to switch sides, and claiming that he hasn't been raised properly. When Tyson tries to use this opening to reason with him, the partially blinded Cyclops uses the sound of his voice to try and bash his head in with a tree. Percy manages to counterattack and knock Polyphemus over, but can't bring himself to finish the monster off with Tyson present. Instead, the 2 of them run, knowing that the blinded Polyphemus will be unable to track them in the water. Unfortunately, Clarice begins taunting Polyphemus, who uses the sound of her voice to hurl a rock straight at the Revenge, sinking the ship. Fortunately, the hippocampi are still around, and Tyson uses his own sea god powers to summon them, allowing all 5 friends to escape the island. The last thing Percy hears before he passes out from exhaustion is the sound of Polyphemus loudly celebrating that he's finally killed nobody. Chapter 17. We get a surprise on Miami Beach. The hippocampi deposit the gang in Miami, where they discover that they have only a day left to get the fleece back to Camp Half-Blood and heal the tree. Clarice declares that this is all Percy's fault, before revealing the prophecy that the oracle gave to her. You shall sail the iron ship with warriors of bone. You shall find what you seek and make it your own, but despair for your life entombed within stone, and fail without friends to fly home alone. Percy realizes that Clarice has misinterpreted this prophecy, believing that it told her that she would fail, have no friends, and flee home alone. However, what it actually means is that without friends, Clarice would have failed, and when it says fly home, it's being completely literal. The gang scrape up enough cash to get Clarice a plane ticket to New York, reluctantly handing her the fleece so she can go and finish her quest. Unfortunately, almost as soon as they see her off, the remaining kids turn and are confronted by Luke holding them at sword point, and with Agrias and Araeus in tow. He takes them back to the Princess Andromeda before demanding that they give up the location of the fleece. Percy informs Luke that he's too late to stop Clarice from taking it back to camp, which sends him into a rage. While he's spiraling, Percy surreptitiously uses the rainbow spray from the ship's pool to send an IM to Mr. D, meaning that the entirety of Camp Half-Blood hears the ensuing conversation, in which Luke admits that he poisoned the tree in order to get Percy to retrieve the fleece for him so that he could heal Kronos, and that Chiron had nothing to do with any of it. Mr. D, off the back of this, dismisses Tantalus and resolves to rehire Chiron right before Luke severs the connection. He then orders his warriors to surround Percy and his friends and execute them. So, what did you think of these chapters?
Okay. These are pretty good. I'm starting to have a bit of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Were you satisfied by this resolution to the Polyphemus thing?
No.
No? Okay. Talk to me about your feelings on that.
I just think he's really weak as an antagonist.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have a personal relationship with Percy or really any of the characters besides Grover, and we see a little bit of stuff with Tyson, but it's not really like delved into in a way that like builds to a satisfying emotional climax, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I basically agree. I think that like I mean, he's a big scary monster who we've been seeing since the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's decent setup, but it's not like he's very barely a character, and that I guess maybe he just isn't the main antagonist of the book, even though he's kind of presented as it.
Yeah.
Like Luke seems like more the main antagonist of this book.
Because that's kind of what we got in Lightning Thief as well. We thought that Hades was going to be the main antagonist, and then it turned out that Luke had been pulling the strings all along.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, it's more direct this time because it's not like a twist. So it's more like the antagonist from earlier came back, and now, you know, this was all a setup for you. I think it's like it's obviously like a decent plot. Like, they were well positioned and well supplied with their big old boat, and the gang was super easy to track because everyone knew where they were going, and you know, they waited until Clarice left to like spring their trap, and it makes sense that they would need something to heal Kronos. I just think that like I don't know what my problem is.
I don't think Luke should have disappeared after the first few Princess Andromeda chapters. I think he should have been more of a presence throughout the book. Because, like, I think Rick arrived on Polyphemus. This is entirely speculation on my part, but I think Rick came up with the Sea of Monsters idea and then, like, went through mythology to find, like, okay, what would an appropriate villain from mythology be for a Sea of Monsters plot? And he landed on, understandably, Polyphemus.
Yeah, which scenes from the Odyssey can I copy over that I haven't already used?
More or less, yeah.
Because I feel like I didn't go into this last time, but like going through Scylla and Charybdis and Polyphemus and Circe but also the Sirens, like Odysseus also like had his men tie him up so he could hear their song.
I mean, I can kind of see why you would have Annabeth do that apart from just copying it, because like she's a daughter of Athena, and Odysseus was like favored by Athena. So in that context, I think it's justified. But I definitely get what you mean.
I don't think it's bad that like he's just copying over the things. In fact, I think in that instance especially, it's kind of good because it's playing more into Annabeth's thing of being like the traditional Greek hero.
And also from a certain perspective, it's like, it's educational. Because, I mean, this is a kid's book.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It kind of feels, not as interesting as the first book.
Yeah. I was having a lot of those thoughts this week, and I wasn't sure if I should, like, save them for the last two chapters when we're giving our general thoughts on the whole thing.
I mean, I think it's okay that we give it out at least now, because that's how we're feeling, you know? And
yeah.
Part of the problem is that Polyphemus isn't more interesting. I think Rick is trying to make him more interesting because he's trying to play with the whole like contrast between Polyphemus and Tyson. He's trying to kind of make Polyphemus like representative of like Annabeth's past traumas. It doesn't quite land though.
Mainly because Annabeth is unconscious through most of these chapters and the stuff with Polyphemus, so she doesn't really get a chance to face down her fears or anything.
So it's more Percy doing it, and we're getting the whole like Cyclopes are treacherous tricksters, especially with how Polyphemus is like two big moves in these chapters are one that he sounds kind of like Tyson, and that makes Percy almost like hesitate with like stabbing him to death.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is that he like appeals to Tyson. Both times he uses like a oh woe is me voice, like a very pitiful like disposition
Yeah.
to try and trick someone. And I'm okay with him using that twice because it's like his move and he uses it against different people.
Yeah.
Um but it feels kind of like that's all there is to him. He's kind of like just the same as every other Cyclops, as far as we know, I guess.
Because he also tries to do like a nature versus nurture thing with Tyson, where he's like, "Oh, Tyson, you're only serving these mortals because you weren't raised properly." But, like we don't actually know anything about how Cyclopes are supposed to be raised. We don't know anything about Polyphemus's upbringing, so I think that stuff kind of falls flat.
I wonder if that plays back into the like Cyclopes are either like roving monsters or they're working in Hephaestus's forges. I have to assume that Polyphemus is saying like, if you were a roving monster, like killing people, like you should. It kind of goes back to like the Kronos thing of like we're gonna restore the age of like we're going to create a new age of monsters and death.
Mm-hmm. New Golden Age.
Yeah, new golden age. I don't know. I'm not sure about it. It's just not very interesting ultimately.
Yeah, Luke has so much more going for him as a villain. Like
Yeah.
he has like a really deep rooted history, especially with Annabeth. And that's one of my I guess we might see more of it in the next few chapters, but one of my gripes, I think, is that there's a lot of potential in the idea of Annabeth feeling betrayed by Luke, and I don't think that's being capitalized on enough. It's very much focused on Percy's own hurt and betrayal.
Yeah, and I know that's like fair, but there are still opportunities that we could be getting that I'm okay with it being centered on Percy because he's our main character. But I also do want like, out of the corner of my eye I saw that Annabeth was like quaking and like or I don't know, or like I don't know, something about like maybe she would yell something out at him or like it just doesn't I was like when I came into these chapters, or this last chapter specifically, and Luke came into the scene, I was like, oh, this is finally the moment that we were talking about before on the podcast where Annabeth gets to confront Luke. And it didn't really get to be that.
Yeah.
Maybe it will be, like, maybe next, like, episode, because Luke is still here when the chapters end for this section that we did. He's still, like, the threat. And so maybe next episode we'll be able to get some of that, but I
hope so.
So far I'm just a little disappointed.
I should also say that I'm not just like generally saying more Annabeth because she is a good character and I like her. I'm like specifically by like the standard set by the first book, where we got like so much of her character and we got a lot of really great development for her. And this one just hasn't really stacked up to that.
That's part of the problem for sure, because we got a lot of Annabeth and Grover in the first book. And we haven't... If it had been the same thing, but, like, we got a lot of Annabeth and Tyson, or, like... But it doesn't really feel like that, either. There's a little bit of it, but...
Tyson does get some cool moments, but yeah, not to the same extent as the emotional payoffs you got in The Lightning Thief.
Yeah, and... Annabeth kind of gets some stuff, like the stuff with Circe, the stuff with like her talking about her past, the stuff with like she has those moments, but they aren't as effective, I guess. We're not learning about her for the first time.
Yeah.
So some of it is like retreading old ground, and some of it is like new stuff or clarifications, and it works, but it's not as laid out as it was in the first book. And I'm okay with a more subtle approach, but sometimes rather than a more subtle approach, it feels like just a sparseness there.
Yeah. sometimes it feels like we're kind of doing a bit of the heavy lifting for the story and reading into like pieces that are there but are not necessarily being connected.
Yeah.
Speaking of blatant retreads, I think my least favorite moment in these chapters is when they get back to Miami and find out that like 10 days have passed and they only have 1 day left to get the fleece back to Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah, that was it makes perfect sense, I guess. Like, they
I
were out at
disagree.
sea. Okay, tell me.
I disagree because like they straight up say that they weren't at sea for that long. And I always
Mm-hmm.
thought the implication with the Lotus Casino was like, time doesn't work differently in there. You are just having so much fun because it's such a paradise that you don't notice time passing.
Right.
And so I think
I
it's kind
mean,
of weird to then go back and say, oh no, there's just like a black hole in the sea of monsters.
time has to work differently in the casino because there's a kid from like the 70s in there who's still the same age.
Well, yeah, but I assume that was just like, I don't know, the lotuses keep you eternally youthful and healthy or whatever.
Hmm. I guess I was seeing it as like that's sort of a general effect that these kinds of. Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't know. It's, huh. I'm not sure. I guess I didn't take issue with it, but like, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess to me it just feels like an excuse to like redo that really impactful plot point from book one, but with a lot less impact because like it
Yeah,
gets resolved immediately.
and what I do like from this is that we get Percy's best moment in the book from this though.
Oh, this moment's great. I love this.
This is when Annabeth, like, so basically they're arguing, they're saying we all screwed it up, like, Clarice, it's your fault, and Annabeth and her and like are like shouting at each other, and Percy stands up for Clarice. He like looks through her point of view and is like, this is what Clarice is going through right now. She's like been sent on a quest. She has these big expectations from her abusive dad,
Hmm.
and he like empathizes with her in that way that is so important to me. It's really good.
Yeah, and I like that moment of empathy is like even built up to with the Polyphemus stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
like twice Percy is on the verge of killing him and then thinks about it and realizes that that's not what he wants to do. And it doesn't work out for him there, but here he empathizes with Clarice and it turns out to be absolutely the right thing to do.
Percy is I don't want to call him a soft boy. He is a good kid though. He is definitely a
Yeah,
good
for
kid.
sure.
And I think there's just a lot there that like made me, because like we have grown to like Clarice quite a bit in this book.
Oh yeah,
She's
she's the
she's
standout
very
for
funny.
sure.
She's always screwing everything up, but like in like the perfect like RPG character fail forward type of way, stuff that like screws it up, but the
Yeah,
story continues perfectly.
yeah, and like it makes sense. Like even the because on thinking about it, I thought that I maybe should have felt annoyed at the scene where she's like taunting Polyphemus and he's throwing rocks at them. But like, no, that actually is completely in character for her because she is like a bully. So of
Yeah,
course she's gonna taunt this guy who she's bested. That makes complete sense.
yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely consistent with her characterization. I like it. We also get some Percy epic. Other than that Percy epic moment, we get some more Percy epic moments in the last chapter.
We
Um,
do, yeah.
he. What do you What do you think of his big moves?
I like the bit where he like surreptitiously calls Camp Half Blood and Dionysus so they can like listen in on the conversation. I might just be biased because like my favorite anime is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and that is something that the brothers do in like one of the first episodes of that.
Yeah, that's like I think that's the first episode of where they like expose the guy who's like a fake
Yeah,
god or whatever. That's a really good episode.
yeah. So that might be color my view of it, but it's a good moment.
Those are always like really good moments, and like there was one of those in I've been watching Young Justice with my friend, and my friend
Oh,
Bree. Shout out to Bree. And there was one of those where like a villain had thought he'd won it all, and the superheroes reveal that actually, they had just set up a big trap, and everybody had heard him admit that he tried to kill someone. And it's always very good.
actually, wait. I changed my mind. I watched Zootopia with a friend of mine the other day. And that movie also ends this exact same way, with like someone recording a conversation where the villain just says that they're going to keep doing racism forever. So I changed my mind. This sucks, actually.
Oh Christ. But we also get Percy figuring out how to basically finagle the prophecy.
Yeah, I mean that's regular Greek hero stuff.
Do they? I don't know if Greek. I feel like heroes. I feel like Greek heroes always kind of stumble into the prophecies and such. You know.
I guess I mean more in a sense of like the prophecies are almost always bullshit, and it's just a case of like when and how the characters find out that the prophecy is bullshit.
Okay, yeah, I get you. How do you? There is one line in the prophecy that I'm curious about.
Oh,
I'm wondering if you noticed this one too. You know, there's this part that says, "But despair for your life entombed within stone." What does that mean?
I think that's just the bit where she's trapped in Polyphemus' cave and she thinks she's gonna die.
Oh. Well, never mind. I was like, Clarice doesn't get entombed in. I was thinking like sealed like Han Solo in stone.
That is kind of how it reads, yeah.
I guess entombed makes sense because she was entombed in the like what that word means.
Mm-hmm.
That's my mistake.
I mean, it did take me a second to figure that out, and I did briefly think that we were getting like really fucked up foreshadowing for like an arc later on where Clarice gets sealed in stone or something, which would have been nice.
That'd be horrible, or it could be.
I mean, nice from a storytelling and foreshadowing perspective. Horrible because it's a character we like.
Yeah. What did you think about Luke saying he was going to give the fleece back to them? Like, why would he do that?
I mean, I guess he doesn't hate the other campers at Camp Half-Blood, right?
No, I guess not. No, he kind of does, but
well, I mean, besides anything else, he needs them to defect to his side to weaken the Olympians.
Yeah.
So, like, poisoning the tree to get the fleece out into the open, using it to heal Kronos, and then letting them re-heal the tree and put everything back to normal, that I think makes sense for him.
That's true. It feels like lingering regret to me. Like,
yeah, it definitely also that.
Like he still like regrets what happened to Thalia, and like he doesn't really want her to die, maybe, even if she is a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's kind of how it like. That, again, that was me just like reading into it a little bit, being like, what is maybe there's some subtext here, but it could be. Tantalus also got fired.
Tantalus, I kind of turned out to be a nothing character, but I did like how he went out.
He had a very cool going out. He finally got to grab a burger, but the moment he did, he was sent back to Hades so he couldn't eat it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a funny send off for a character we didn't like very much.
Yeah, a funny send off for a character who did nothing in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, he was dismissed before he could be a traitor in this book, but I'm looking forward to him coming back as a nuisance in a later book, is what I'll say.
I think they're definitely going to have to go back into Hades for some reason at some point, and Tantalus will be a minor villain along the way, is my prediction.
Yeah, I think so too.
Shall we once again address the Tyson in the room? Because I think this was a decent set of chapters for Tyson.
It was pretty good. Tyson gets to come back and do some badass stuff.
My boy got a big hero moment.
Yeah, he got to be like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. It was cool. Like, it's a cool scene. Polyphemus is like, you're a traitor to your kind. And Tyson is like, you are not my kind. And then he gets to fight back against Polyphemus to protect Percy. And him and Percy fight together, which is very cool.
Yeah, I like that.
And I like all of it. I'm not sure how I feel about, like, I don't know. Yeah, it's cool. I think it's cool. It works, I think.
I think I was, for most of the chapter, I was like, this is cool, but I'm not sure how I feel about Tyson just being big, dumb, strong guy, and that being, like, where his character goes. But...
Is he still, like... It feels like that's not his character anymore. It feels like he's kind of shed that.
I mean, when he talks to Percy, there's definitely a couple of lines that he, like... where he just, like, doesn't understand what Percy is saying, or for comedic effect. But I think, like, when we get him, like, using the same kind of sea god powers as Percy,
right,
and, like, coming into his own as, like, okay, Tyson is basically, like, a demigod.
That ruled. That was also one of the best parts so far.
That this is absolutely what he deserved to have after the crap treatment he's gotten in a lot of this book.
Give Tyson sea god powers and he gets it. Hell yeah.
Give him sea god powers, give him a hippocampus named Rainbow.
I have also true. I love you, Rainbow.
Agreed.
I want to I had some supporting evidence towards an argument we had a few episodes ago given in these chapters. Percy says the line, "Not many people realize that when a ship goes down, it acts like a sinkhole, pulling down everything around it." Now, dear listener, you may not remember, but Jane and I talked about whirlpools, and I made the very logical and fair claim, the very true statement that it would be safer to go into a whirlpool by yourself than with a ship going down around you. And here, dear listener, beloved listener, I have been proven correct by Percy Jackson himself.
No, you have not. Because the point I made wasn't...
How?
The point I made wasn't you would be safer going into a whirlpool with a ship. My point was you would never be anywhere near a whirlpool if you weren't in a ship.
No, you changed your argument a little bit.
I absolutely did not.
I think you're moving the goalposts. I think you're sea lioning a bit here. I think.
To be fair, I actually had forgotten we had that argument until you brought it back up.
I do want to because if you're going into a whirlpool, and your ship is going down too, that acts as like an extra sinkhole. That acts like a second whirlpool. So I think that you have to agree that I am a genius.
But how do you get to a whirlpool without a boat?
I'm saying that if you see a whirlpool coming, you may as well jump into it.
Okay, but what if
swim ahead?
But the whirlpool won't necessarily smash up the boat. What if the boat survives?
Now you're just being unrealistic.
No, the boats in here did not just get destroyed because they went into a whirlpool. They either had an engine explosion or had a rock thrown at them by a cyclops. So I feel like you're moving the goalpost now.
I don't know if that's true. What do you think about Grover in these chapters?
Grover is a cameo role in this book.
Grover is a damsel-in-distress, truly.
Yeah.
It's...
Oh, is that why he's in the fucking dress?
He's Princess Peach. Oh God. I agree. Grover needs more of a character. I miss him being a character.
I guess it's possible that the dilemma Rick ran into with this book was that, like, Grover had a fairly self-contained and completed character arc at the end of Lightning Thief.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of... I get there are other places you can take his character from there, but with the limited amount of screen time he ended up in because of where the plot put him, there's not a lot of ways to develop him.
I just wish he got some lines.
Please.
He doesn't get to have any interaction. I don't care. I don't mind him, like, his character arc stalling out for this book or whatever. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish he had some, like, interaction with other people. We do get the moment where he, like, Grover, Annabeth, and Percy, Grover, Percy, and Clarice all, like, gang up at first to fight Polyphemus. And...
yeah, but that's like one moment.
Yeah.
Because almost immediately that goes into Grover running for it with Annabeth.
Yeah. The Golden Fleece would make the world's best weighted blanket. It's it's 60 pounds. It's you wrap it around yourself. It crushes you slowly, but it sounds so comfortable also.
It actually has no magical healing properties. Annabeth was just like so comfortable that her body healed on its own.
Extremely true. Clarice carries Annabeth in that first chapter. I have
She
a note
does.
here, and normally I don't point out notes like these just because I think it's bad podcasting form. The it My note says Clarice carrying Annabeth like a potato sack is caught, and it stops there. Uh, I I think I what I meant to write was is cause for shipping, but
They are
and
literally
and
running towards a ship.
okay, uh, you're right. You're right. Um,
Wait a second, I read out podcast notes like that all the time.
so let's talk about the. I think we got
Oh, my
everything. What else?
feelings.
Anything else?
You got me. You destroyed me.
Oh, it's okay, Jane. I ship you and being a good podcaster.
Thank you. Someday it'll happen.
Don't worry, it's happened already.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Action's still pretty good.
The action is still pretty good. I, I like the whole Polyphemus confrontation. No matter how kind of boring it is, it does have a cool. It has this cool, clear set piece.
Mm-hmm.
The setting is really good of like his island. It's all been very clearly laid out. You know the whole scene as it plays out. You understand where everyone is and what they're doing. It's good. It's effective.
Yeah, Rick did a good job of laying the groundwork of the island, just not the dude who lived there.
No, yeah. Uh, I would. I wish Polyphemus was more of a character. I think even if he didn't get to be a character, but if he got to be like representative of something that was happening in the book, like a theme or something,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like he does, and that's kind of my main gripe.
Or even just like, if he was just more intimidating. Because, like, the Minotaur in book one, like that, the Minotaur doesn't have a personality. And I don't think it was specifically like representative of anything, but it was like so vividly and horribly described, and it was such a like overwhelming threat that it made the action scene with it like really cool and memorable. And Polyphemus just
Yeah,
doesn't have that. He's easily duped.
it feels like part of it. He's not really duped though. Does he get duped in these chapters?
Grover's been duping him for the entire book.
Okay, that's true. I feel like part of it though is that like our heroes have gone from like ineffectual like 12-year-olds who don't really know how to fight. They don't even know that they're supposed to be fighting. Percy versus the Minotaur was just like a random kid who suddenly saw his mom die and had to like call upon instincts he didn't know were there.
Yeah.
Percy is now a trained combat veteran at 13.
He does sleep with his weapon under his pillow.
That's true. And so I think to that effect, like it kind of like lessens the impact of these monsters when they aren't like scared. Like they don't have like a bit where they're like too terrified by Polyphemus to fight him. I think that would have gone a long way.
There is a touch in here that I do like, which I think maybe plays into that idea and could be like a good way of doing action for the series to lean into as they get more competent. Which is when Clarice and Percy are like they're holding off Polyphemus to let Grover and Annabeth escape. And there's that short confrontation where it's a case of like they have to be really skilled and really careful and land glancing blow after glancing blow on him. And they know that if they slip up even once, that's it. He'll land a devastating hit and probably kill them.
That was good.
Yeah, that's a really good way of doing action scenes with like really competent characters, because it means you can have them do cool shit and use their abilities, but also there's a ticking clock element of like they're gonna slip up eventually.
Absolutely, and that's like you said, this is a good action scene.
Mm-hmm. Oh hey, what the fuck is with the bit where Percy has like a random burst of energy and then beats the shit out of Polyphemus? It's just after he crosses the chasm and gets onto the same side as them, and Percy just goes absolutely sicko mode on him.
Is it just like adrenaline? I guess I'm not sure, to be honest.
But there's even a line where like Grover draws attention to it and says like, "How did you do that?" I feel like this must be like foreshadowing for something else.
There's a good possibility. I'm really not sure what it's about, but in looking for it, I did find the good Grover line from these chapters.
Oh.
Which was Annabeth waking up saying, "You're not married?" And Grover grins and says, "No, my friends talked me out of it."
Okay, yeah, that is a good Grover line.
That is very good.
The humor is definitely still there.
Yeah. That's kind of what's holding it up right now. It's the humor, the action. The character work is still fine, but it's not as good.
It's taken a dip.
I'm curious to see how this all resolves.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe subtle little breadcrumbs have been laid all throughout the book that will suddenly come together for a finale that will make us both cry.
You know, I would love that.
I would really love that. It probably won't happen, but you know what? I'm
probably
open
not
to having my mind changed.
I didn't cry at the end of last one either, and I don't know. I did actually tear up.
Yeah, you did.
I did admit to tearing up at the part where Percy was like walking down the stairs of Olympus.
Yeah, we both teared up during the first one.
Yeah. It's a good book. This is a pretty good book too so far. It's fine.
Yeah, fine is how I would describe it.
And I think that does it for us today. Jane, thank you for being with me here today.
My pleasure.
It's been very fun as always.
Yeah.
If you'd like to reach the show, you can drop us an email at unwisegirlspod@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at unwisegirls, where we also have a link to our official Discord server. If you like us, you can support us by rating, reviewing, downloading our episodes, supporting us on Patreon. Patreon.com/unwisegirls. For $1 a month, you get a special role in our Discord, marking you as a camp counselor. For $3 a month, you get an even specialer role as a friend of Dionysus and access to all of our bonus content. Last bonus episode, we talked about Kerbal Space Program. We talked about Gundam. We talked about Jane's common interests with Joe Rogan. And
no, don't say it like that.
And and as always, we talked about Homestuck too. And for $5 a month, you get the special stroll in our Discord of Aphrodite's Chosen, all of bonus content, and a shout out at the end of our episodes.
This week we'd like to give a shout out to Medusa, Daddy Poseidon's ex, Mercy, and Veronica Friend, who we also want to give an extra special thanks to for leaving us our first review on Apple Podcasts, bizarrely, which is a platform that our distributor says we shouldn't be on, but we apparently are, so that's cool.
But yes, thank you very much, Veronica. It was very nice. You are a friend of the podcast, truly.
It's true.
As we always say at the end of every episode...
I'm sorry, I had to do a yawn. See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
Bye-bye.
Bye.